All right, let's talk about your favorite draft class. A couple of teams here. Let's start at the top with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll mention the name for people listening. If you're watching on YouTube, maybe Debo has a graphic. Jalen Reagor, defensive tackle out of Georgia. His teammate Nolan Smith, edge rusher out of Georgia as well. Tyler Steen, the offensive lineman. He has potential.
Who's Jalen Reagor?
Yeah, I want to stop. That's a sick joke. That is a sick joke.
You know what's bad?
Coming off a draft class like this, that is a sick joke.
I was literally reading Jalen Carter's name, and I said Jalen Reagor. It's ingrained in my memory. Thank you for pointing that out, Rick.
It wasn't an accident, Debo.
No, it wasn't. And Rick knows that name too, because we know what came after Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson. All right, let's start over. Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Then Nolan Smith, his teammate. Then Tyler Steen, the offensive tackle / perhaps guard out of Alabama. Sidney Brown, one of my favorite players, the safety out of Illinois. Keely Ringo, cornerback / safety, out of Georgia. Tanner McKee, interesting pick there, quarterback out of Stanford. And then Moro Ajomo, defensive lineman out of Texas. Those are all the picks that the Eagles made. And Rick, I'll let you talk about them.
Yeah, no, and you have to throw in the trade for Swift. So,
yep.
But when you looked at their needs going into this thing, it was defensive end, defensive tackle, safety, running back, and then maybe some offensive guard or interior offensive line help. And Howie did a phenomenal job being able to address all these positions, but with really, really good football players, and the board truly did fall his way. Jalen Carter, the Philadelphia would have never have seen if it wasn't for the red flags, but him and Nolan Smith, who missed time last year, but ended up running a 4.38. I'm assuming they think he's going to be like a Hassan Reddick. I think Tyler Steen, who is a little bit underrated because of his position flexibility, not only play tackle, but guard. Sidney Brown was one of your favorites. Does he become, and I don't know if he'll fit that, but they were able to sign both corners. They lost Epps. They lost Chauncey Gardner or Gardner Johnson. And then Sidney Brown kind of fits that mold a little bit. And then Ringo was a steal. Everybody was talking about him a year ago being one of the first corners off the board. Now he has an opportunity to come in and learn behind Bradbury and Slay. So I thought those first 4 picks were all home runs out of the park. The only one that was a little confusing to me, Tanner McKee, because his athletic skill set does not fit the rest of that quarterback room. And then the D lineman, defensive tackle, will give him maybe develop into some depth. Not a great pass rusher, but he works hard, he plays hard, and he'll be a good depth guy. I think he'll develop into a good depth guy. And they needed to get the D line addressed because that is what really helped them get into the Super Bowl, that D line rotation, and they were able to knock it out of the park with who they were able to get.
Yeah, Tanner McKee is a curious one, the quarterback out of Stanford. He's a tall drink of water, not particularly athletic when you compare him to, say, Davis Mills, who came out of Stanford before he did. Keely Ringo, our guy Bryant McFadden's talked about this for months now. Are you thinking about moving him to safety, or are you just going to see what you have and then go from there?
I think if just put him at corner, let him develop there, because you have 2 older corners that are more short-term solutions and are going to be there the next 4 or 5 years. And then he can potentially step in to be a Bradbury or somebody like that, more Bradbury-ish than Slay-ish, if that makes sense.
Debo, who was your favorite pick of this draft? You only get one.
Jalen Carter.
Okay, yep. Bandwagon.
Not Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor should have made the Jalen Carter announcement. That'd have been awesome.
Howie's come a long way since that night.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said Howie's come a long way in drafting Jalen since that night.
Yeah, he really has.
And Jalen Carter kind of puts us in the right direction.
By the way, BMAC, Debo, BMAC made this observation on the night of day one. The real loser for the Eagles on day one, Nolan Smith, because Jalen Carter took all that money he was supposed to get when he was going to go 10th overall. If Jalen Carter had gone early, if the Bears had taken him like they were supposed to, they may have taken Nolan Smith at 10. He would have gotten millions of dollars. I think Rick actually had the number. It's a lot.
Yeah. That, you know what? That would be another thing, is we just talking about the numbers, the difference between the numbers on the first overall pick and the 32nd overall pick, and the difference from the first pick in the second round to the 32nd pick in a second. It's very interesting on just the money discrepancy through those rounds.
And one last thing, I know we need to move on, but I think Debo's fine talking about the Eagles. There are some kids on this list, some men on this list, both drafted and undrafted, with maturity concerns. What's the thinking in the pre-draft process when the Eagles are talking about these players?
Are you asking me or Debo?
I'm asking you. Debo doesn't care. He just wants them to play football.
I think with the culture and the leadership they have in there, like I said, getting Slay back, Bradbury back, signing Graham back, signing Cox back. Jalen Hurst now is paid to be not only the great quarterback that he is, but a leader as well. So they have a lot of veteran leadership that they can take some of these maturity questionable guys and try to integrate them into their culture and into their locker room. No,
on paper, this is formidable. If you're a team in the NFC East not named Philadelphia,
they'd be better than they were next year.
Yeah,
injury, and these guys continue to develop.
Debo, I'll give you the name that you're supposed to say about the favorite player, Sidney Brown. You're gonna love that guy
if you can see him.